And then, because we're too scared to do it. But what I wanted to talk about, I'll be coming out of Genesis chapter 3. What I wanted to be talking about is redemption and being redeemed. Because I've been thinking about the song. And by the way, like I said 2 Sundays ago, I said I was going to do this. I was planning on doing that sermon I was meant to do 2 Sundays ago. This Sunday, once again, I got to the church and God changed what He wanted me to talk about. So one of these days, y'all will get that sermon when He's ready. When He's ready for me to do it. But I've been thinking about being redeemed. And we sing that song, Redeemed by the Blood of the Lamb. Which that's a hint, Zach. Be prepared for at the end of the sermon. Being redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. And I will tell you, I'm not going to beat it over your head, Zach. But just like everybody else, I don't understand why we sing out of a blue book and you call it the black, it's called the black book. But I also don't understand why they call green grapes white. So I just don't question it. You just tell me which book and what page and we'll sing it. But do we really understand what it means to be redeemed? It's so important for us to learn the Bible and learn the context of when it was written and how it was written and to who it was written. How many people have been led astray lately because they don't understand, as Brother Reggie taught us, that when you read the word love in the Bible, it means one of 3 things. It could mean either God's love, the love between a husband and wife, or it could be brotherly love. There's so many people who are totally taking things out of context and says that God supports homosexuality because it says David loved Solomon's son, and they don't understand that they were talking about brotherly love because they don't study the Bible, they don't learn the context. Well, I want to tell y'all about the same thing as love. When it talks about being redeemed in the Bible, there was back then in the Greek, it meant one of 3 things. It could first mean someone telling their servant, go and buy somebody from the marketplace. I'm saying it my way. This isn't the way I learned it, but I'm saying it the way I would explain it to somebody. First of all, it was go into the marketplace and buy somebody. Go get them. Go purchase them. I want that person. Because back then, right or wrong, they had servants, they had slaves. And the first form of redemption, or being redeemed, when they say go redeem somebody, was go and get them, pay for them, I want them. Another way, when they use redeem, they could also mean, I've already paid for that person, I want you to go pick them up and bring them to me. And then the third one was literally to set free, or to pardon. They're free of their debt, they're free of being a slave, they're a free person, they're set free. So redemption. And we say this and don't understand the full, God's full plan of redemption, of redeemed. But that's what it means. It means all 3. It means all 3. We see that God had a redemption plan for us from the beginning. If you read Genesis, you realize that God had already realized as soon as Adam and Eve screwed up, as soon as they broke God's command, as soon as sin got introduced, God said, I'm not done with His people. I'm not done with my creation. I'm going to give them a redemption plan so that way they can come back to me if they want to. And we find this all the way back in Genesis chapter 3. If you read verse 15, and he's actually talking to Satan right here, or the serpent. It says serpent. We know it was Satan. I personally believe Satan was in the serpent, because ain't it crazy that Adam and Eve talked to a serpent and they wasn't freaking out? So they was used to talking to animals back then. That it was common to them. So I don't think the serpent itself was evil, but now we see it as a symbol of evil, because Satan used the serpent to deceive. So it was Satan talking through the serpent. So God is talking to Satan through the serpent. He says this in verse 15. I will but enter me between thee and the woman. And what is it? It's talking about, it's thee is Satan, and it's talking about the woman, it's talking about the nation of Israel eventually. That's what it's talking about, the symbolism. God's people. Back then, God's chosen people before they chose not to accept Jesus Christ. And he sent out the disciples to start he says, go to everybody. So now this applies to everybody, just God's people. But he was talking about Israel when he says the woman. And between thy seed and her seed. What it's talking about there is between thy seed is the people who choose to rebel against God. And it says her seed, it's talking about Jesus. Because whether you like it or not, Jesus was a Jew. He was Jewish. He was born out of the nation of Israel. That was God's people back then. So of course he was going to be born a Jew. And it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. And right there it's talking about his death, his crucifixion, and his resurrection. So right back then, God has already announced that he has a redemption plan, because he already knows one day he's going to send Jesus Christ. Just like I said, the first thing it means with redemption, it says, was a master sending a servant to go get somebody, to go pay for somebody. Right here it's telling us that one day God is going to send Jesus, his son. It says, I want them. Go buy them. And we know that the only way to pay for sin was the blood. Something had to die for sin to be forgiven. Something has to die for sin to be forgiven. And for all souls not to die because of sin, Jesus paid that price. His blood was spilled so we could be in heaven with God for all eternity. So there it is. The first thing God says one day, all the way back in Genesis, that Jesus is going to come. And he has. And he's paid the price. He has set us free. And he has set us free. Every single person in here who has accepted Jesus Christ has experienced the first two forms of redemption. Jesus come to pay the price for everybody. So everybody's experienced that. Whether you choose God or not, you have still experienced that. You just turned your back on it. He didn't just come to pay the price for Michael Joe and for my two Waynes. I got two Waynes here. And for Anita. and just for Miss Susie. He did it for everybody. So everybody, whether they're saved or not, has experienced this because Jesus has already done it. He's come. He's not going to come to die again. He came one time for everybody. It's not his fault if people turned against him. That's what it talks about right here when it says between thy seed. That's who they're talking about, those who decide to turn their back on God. But those who accepted God has gone a little bit further, and they have experienced being set free from sin and death. That is the second form of redemption that we have experienced. That is further that reconnects that relationship with God that sin tore apart. The thing that we have yet to experience is that third form of redemption. What do you mean? We're redeemed. We're redeemed. Yeah, he's bought he's bought you. He's paid the price and he set you free. But remember, there was a third form of redemption back then in the Greek that also could mean go get the one I paid for and bring him to me. One day Jesus is going to come back. He's already took some of us. Some of us have already gone to be with Jesus. But one day he's going to come back and get the rest of us. And then the redemption story will come full circle. The redemption plan God started in Genesis chapter 3 will be fulfilled when he comes and gets us. My question is, have you experienced more than just the redemption plan of God paying the price for you has he truly set you free. Because so many people are still stuck, be a slave to sin, because they have a Jesus experience. They don't really accept what he has to say. They don't really accept the Bible. They don't really accept his salvation, at least not through their actions. They say it with their words, but they don't do it through their actions. Because you could tell someone, I love you all day long, but if you're always nagging at them and trash talking them behind their back, do you really love them? I mean, when they're around and they're right there in your face, you're so nice, but as soon as they turn away, you're just like, we all know people like that. I mean, when you're talking to them, they're trash talking somebody else until they walk up, and then they're their best friends until they walk away, and then they're trash talking them again. We do that with God, but with our actions. We say we love God, and God's paid the price for us, and we're redeemed, but we have never really experienced that second form of redemption, being set free, because if we did, we'd be a different person. We'd no longer have the signs of being a slave, them chains of sin on us. We'd be a different person. I don't think you ever would see, back then you never see a slave person set free still wanting to, no, give me back that ball and chain. That's what I'm comfortable with. That's what I want. Don't take my chains away from me. I can't live without them. No, I bet you they were running and skipping and screaming. I'm not going to do that, but I'm sure that's what they were doing. They didn't just stay in their chains. They threw their chains down, and they lived as a completely different person. You can tell when somebody has been set free. So my question is, why do we still act like we haven't experienced that second form of redemption? We've only experienced the first one. Because as I said, everybody's experienced that first form of redemption. Or at least it's the initial form of redemption. And you can still turn your back on God and go and live an eternity in hell, because that first form of redemption was for everybody. Jesus came to redeem everybody. But so many people don't take that next step and get a little further and get closer to God and get a little deeper into what it is to be truly redeemed by the King of Kings. So if we're redeemed and we're set free, we need to show it to the world. We really need, as I used to say, and I've said before, especially to my nephews growing up, we need to come to Jesus meeting. We're really bad in this, in not just the nation. I could say, well, people out there need to come to Jesus meeting. We need to come to Jesus meeting in the church and figure out who is really redeemed and who is just playing at being redeemed. I don't hear no amens, Michael Joe. Nobody wants to hear this. I don't want to hear this because the staying at the first part of redeemed would be so easy, and it would make life so much simpler, but it wouldn't get you nowhere. At least it won't get me nowhere where I want to go. I don't know about you, but I intend to walk on streets of gold. And just being one of the three redeemed is not going to get you there. You have to let God set you free. You will never be able to do it yourself. You don't have the keys. Jesus has the keys to death, of hell, of sin. It says it right here. Will bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. I believe this is talking about between the time when Jesus was crucified and when he was resurrected. When he went straight to hell and he took back any authority that Satan once had and said, okay, your time is up at this moment. I'm putting a time limit on what you can do. You no longer have the authority. I do. You can do nothing unless I allow it. If you don't believe that's a true statement, read Job. Everything the devil did in Job, he first had to ask permission. Jesus put the nail in the coffin during that time period. I believe. I believe. That's what he was doing for us. So are you set free today? You've been paid for. So why are you still in your chains? You have been bought. So why are you still living with your old master? Talk about sin. You have been redeemed. So why don't people realize you are different than they are? They should notice it. You know, I'm fixing to do it, right? When they notice, things should change. When you walk into a room, things should change. When someone who isn't been set free comes in contact with someone who is set free, there's a couple of things that should happen. One is they should get uncomfortable. For two reasons. Either you have what they're looking for, or you are challenging them to change and accept what they need, and they don't want it. I have lost my best friend because of that when I was a kid. Luckily, when he came to Christ, he come back and thanked me for not backing down. I didn't speak to him, and thank God he allowed that to happen a week before his death. When you've been set free, I said, others who aren't set free don't want nothing to do with it, or either they're going to be drawn to it. That sounds contradictory, but that's exactly what happens. They either want to shun you, or they want to embrace you. And ain't it crazy that usually the ones you are trying to embrace are the ones who shun you, and the ones you don't really want, that just aggravate you, you don't want to embrace, are the ones who think of you as brothers, or your brother or sister, they just want to hold on to you and figure out why you are the way you are and why you're so happy. How can you be so calm and happy when everybody else is freaking out and stressful? Because I know I'm not going to have to deal with this all the time. I've been paid for. I've been bought for. I've been set free. I'm just waiting for that third redemption when Jesus comes and takes me home. But he did. When I tried to stand out to be different and I wouldn't compromise, because he's like, you're my friend. And he says, I feel like you're choosing, he literally said, you're choosing God and the church over me. I've been your best friend all these years. And I said, well, I didn't have an answer for him. I was like, yeah, I am. I am. And then that phone call, he didn't call me his friend. He called me his brother. He finally found God through his wife, and He said, you're my brother. He says, I understand now why you were the way you were with me. He said, I understand now why you wouldn't butt up with my foul mouth back when we was kids. Now I understand when I came to visit you at your house, why you told me if you gonna act like that. His name was Willie. Mama, you remember? I was like, you're gonna have to leave, Willie. Not in my house, I told him. Those who are set free are different than those who are not, and we need to start showing them that they're missing out because they are complacent at where they're at. They're so used, as I said, they're so used to their chains that God has given them an option to get rid of them, and they rather take them with them. And them chains are going to drag them straight down to an eternity to hell. So my challenge to us is not to be just redeemed, but be set free redeemed. That's what I'm going to start calling it now. Not just redeemed, but set free redeemed. Not just been paid for, but we have thrown off our shackles and we're running towards our God, the one who paid for us. Don't wait until it's too late to be set free. Because those who are complacent at just being the redeemed, as I say, we're all redeemed whether we accept Jesus Christ or not. Those who are complacent where they are right now in this life, when Jesus comes, He's only coming for those who accept it. And we're truly set free. Don't wait. And say, one more chance. Just give me just one more chance. How many chances does He need? Do you realize every time you open your eyes, He's giving you another chance? I wouldn't be surprised if that would be God's answer. How many days have you been alive? I've given you enough chances. I sent my Son to pay the price for you. You didn't want it. My hope and prayer is that when we say the word redeemed from now on, and we sing the word redeemed, and we'll fix it to in a minute, when we sing it, that it will take a whole new meaning for us. That we remember that we have been paid for. We have been set free. And one day, not only will we be an ex-slave to sin, but we will be an adopted son and daughter to the King of all kings.